Grand Meridian Hotel, Manhattan, New York. Thursday, March 14th, 6:47 a.m. The early morning fog still hung between the skyscrapers of Midtown when Victoria Ashford pushed open the revolving door of the Grand Meridian Hotel. The March chill bit her face, but she barely noticed. Her fingers tightened on the strap of her modest handbag as she surveyed the lobby that technically belonged to her, though no one there knew it. The Italian marble beneath her feet echoed with the hurried footsteps of morning guests. Check crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, refracting the golden light that was beginning to filter through the panoramic windows. Victoria knew every detail of this place. She knew the cost of each piece, the story behind every design choice. Her father, Richard Ashford, had built this empire with his own hands, and now he had been dead for exactly 7 months. "Good morning, Vicky." The cheerful voice of Simone, the shift supervisor, cut through her thoughts. The 50-something woman smiled as she organized papers behind the main counter. "You're early today." Victoria forced a smile. Traffic was light. Simone didn't know that Vicky Torres, the rookie receptionist she'd hired 3 months earlier, was actually Victoria Ashford, sole heir to the Ashford Holdings Group, owner of 17 five-star hotels across the United States. No one knew, and that was exactly how she wanted it. After Richard died suddenly of a heart attack, Victoria discovered something disturbing in the financial reports. Someone was embezzling money, amounts small enough to go unnoticed, but too consistent to be coincidental. She needed to be on the inside, behind the scenes, to find out who was stealing her father's legacy. Nathan Cross, the family lawyer and Victoria's only confidant, had warned of the risks. "If they find out who you are, it could backfire," he'd said, his gray eyes filled with genuine concern. But Victoria was stubborn, always had been. "Vicky, can you cover the main check-in today?" Simone asked, straightening her navy blue uniform blazer. "Amanda called in sick and we have 3 groups arriving before noon." "Sure." Victoria put her bag in the employee locker and adjusted her name tag, which simply read, V. Torres, Front Desk. The morning's activity began slowly. A few executives checking out, an elderly couple inquiring about nearby restaurants, a family with 2 small children spilling orange juice on the counter. Victoria handled it all with quiet efficiency, her erect posture and refined vocabulary occasionally betraying her true origins before she remembered she was just another employee. At 9:23 a.m., the revolving doors opened with dramatic force. Derek Stone walked in as if the world owed him reverence. Victoria recognized him immediately. It was hard not to. Derek Stone, CEO of Stone Enterprises, a billionaire investor known for both his aggressive business dealings and his fiery temper. By 34, he had built an empire in technology and commercial real estate. Forbes had listed him among the 10 most influential entrepreneurs under 40. It had also listed him among the 10 most arrogant, though that last part wasn't official. He walked with 3 assistants running behind him, all talking simultaneously on their cell phones. Derek wore a dark gray Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than Victoria's monthly salary as a receptionist. His brown hair was perfectly combed, his jawline was defined, and his blue eyes scanned the room like a predator assessing territory. "Reservation in Stone's name," he said without looking at Victoria, already typing something on his iPhone. "Executive penthouse. I hope you're ready." Victoria checked the system. "Good morning, Mr. Stone. Yes, your suite is—" "I don't care about your greeting," he interrupted, finally looking at her. His eyes scanned her up and down with visible disdain. "Just give me the keys and make sure my luggage comes up in less than 5 minutes. I have a conference in 2 hours. Victoria took a deep breath. She'd dealt with difficult clients before, but something about Derek Stone's attitude triggered an old alarm bell in her mind. She knew men like him, men who measured people's worth by their bank balance and treated anyone below them like furniture. "Of course, sir. If you could just confirm—" "Confirm what?" Derek leaned over the counter, his voice low but thick with irritation. "You think I have time to be confirming obvious things? Do your job." One of the assistants, a nervous young man with glasses, intervened. "Mr. Stone, perhaps we should—" "Shut up, Marcus." Derek didn't take his eyes off Victoria. "I'm surrounded by incompetence. That's what happens when you hire cheap people." Victoria felt the blood rush to her face, but she kept her expression neutral. She processed the check-in in silence, her fingers typing with mechanical precision while her mind worked on a different frequency. She knew who Derek Stone was. More importantly, she knew why he was there. 3 weeks ago, Nathan had casually mentioned that Derek was negotiating the acquisition of the West Shore Collection hotel chain. 5 premium properties on the East Coast. What Derek didn't know was that final approval of this purchase was contingent on a non-compete agreement with Ashford Holdings Group. And who had the final say on this approval? Victoria Ashford. Your key, Mr. Stone. She held out the key card along with a discreet envelope containing suite information. Elevator to the right, 22nd floor. Your luggage will be delivered immediately. Derek took the key without a thank you but paused before walking away. He glanced at Victoria's badge for the first time. V. Torres, he read aloud, a cruel smile curving his lips. You're new here, aren't you? I can see that. You haven't learned yet that efficiency trumps this pretense of politeness. I'll make sure to remember, sir. Do it. Derek turned but then stopped abruptly. He looked at the envelope in his hand and with a dramatic movement opened it. His eyes scanned the contents. A personalized welcome card. Information about the hotel spa. Coupons for the restaurant. What's this? He tossed the envelope on the counter. I ordered something special. Dom Perignon 2008. Champagne. Organic fruit basket. Printed Financial Times newspaper. Where is all this? Victoria checked the system again, her heart racing. The special requests were there, confirmed by the concierge team. Mr. Stone, according to our records, all items were delivered to your suite 30 minutes ago. Are you calling me a liar? The lobby suddenly went silent. Other guests began to look over. Simone came running from the back office. Mr. Stone, I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding, Simone began. The misunderstanding, Derek cut in, his voice rising, is that I'm paying $3,000 a night and being treated like I'm in a roadside motel. He pointed at Victoria. And this incompetent is trying to tell me I'm wrong. Victoria clenched her fists under the counter. Sir, you just nothing. Derek slammed his fist down on the marble counter, sending pens flying. Your job is to serve me, not question me. You think because you're wearing a cheap suit you can talk to me as an equal? Victoria's heart hammered. Part of her wanted to scream who she really was, to see the color drain from that arrogant man's face. But she swallowed her pride. Not yet. It wasn't time yet. I apologize, Mr. Stone. I will personally check your suite. No. Derek rounded the counter before anyone could react. He stood inches from Victoria, completely invading her personal space. You know what your problem is? People like you think they deserve respect just for existing. Respect is earned. And you're replaceable, expendable. And then it happened. Derek Stone raised his hand and slapped Victoria across the face. He wasn't violent enough to knock her down, but he was loud, forceful, humiliating. The sound echoed through the marble lobby like a gunshot. Several people screamed. Simone clapped her hand over her mouth. Derek's assistants froze. Victoria felt her skin burn, the taste of blood in her mouth where she'd bitten her lip. Her ears rang, but she didn't move. She didn't cry. Her eyes met his, and for a second, Derek seemed to realize he'd crossed a line. But the moment passed. He adjusted his cuffs as if nothing had happened. I hope the next receptionist is more competent, he said coldly, turning toward the elevator. Victoria remained motionless, the left side of her face throbbing. She could feel all eyes on her. Simone rushed to her side, murmuring comforting words that Victoria barely registered. Because your mind was already working. Derek Stone didn't know it, but he had just signed his own certificate of ruin. Grand Meridian Hotel, Manhattan, New York, Thursday, March 14th, 10:02 a.m. Victoria's hands trembled as she locked herself inside the employee bathroom on the second floor. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a harsh glow on her reflection in the mirror. A red handprint was already forming on her left cheek, vivid against her pale skin. Her dark brown eyes stared back at her, burning with something between rage and cold calculation. She pulled out her phone with shaking fingers and typed a single message. Nathan, it happened. Need you here. Now. The response came in less than 30 seconds. On my way. Don't do anything. I mean it, Victoria. She splashed cold water on her face, wincing as it touched the tender skin. The physical pain was manageable. She'd fallen off horses, broken her wrist rock climbing when she was 16. Pain she could handle. What burned deeper was the humiliation, the way Derek Stone had looked at her like she was nothing, like she was an insect he could crush under his Italian leather shoes. But Victoria Ashford hadn't built her reputation by reacting emotionally. She'd graduated summa cum laude from Harvard Business School. She'd turned around 3 failing hotel properties before she was 25. She knew how to play the long game, and Derek Stone had just made the worst mistake of his life. A knock on the bathroom door startled her. Vicky. Honey, are you okay? Simone's voice thick with concern. Victoria opened the door. Simone's face crumpled when she saw the mark. Oh, sweetheart. I've already called the police. That man should be arrested for assault. This is unacceptable. No police, Victoria said quietly. What? But he hit you. In front of witnesses. We have it on security cameras. Victoria's mind sharpened. The cameras. Of course. Every inch of the Grand Meridian's public spaces was monitored by a state-of-the-art security system. Her father had insisted on it after an incident 5 years ago involving a theft ring. Simone, I need you to trust me, Victoria said carefully. I want copies of those security recordings, all angles. But I don't want the police involved yet. Simone frowned, confused. I don't understand. Why would you? Please. I have my reasons. Can you get me those recordings? The older woman studied Victoria's face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Marcus in security owes me a favor. But Vicky, you need to go home. Take the rest of the day off. Take the whole week if you need to. I'll handle Mr. Stone's complaints. I'm not going anywhere. Victoria's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. I'm finishing my shift. Are you insane? That man assaulted you. And if I leave now, he wins. Victoria straightened her blazer, rolled her shoulders back. I won't give him that satisfaction. Simone opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Something in Victoria's eyes made her reconsider. You're tougher than you look, kid. All right. But the second he comes near you again, I'm calling security. Deal? Deal. Victoria returned to the front desk, ignoring the stares from guests and colleagues. Word had already spread. She could hear the whispers, see the mixture of pity and shock on people's faces. Her co-worker James, a kind man in his 40s, approached hesitantly. Vicky, I'm so sorry, that was completely out of line. Do you want me to file a formal complaint with management? Management? Victoria almost laughed. She was management, the highest level of management possible. But James didn't know that. Thank you, James, I'll handle it. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of check-ins and phone calls. Victoria operated on autopilot, her professionalism never wavering even as her cheek throbbed with each heartbeat. She caught glimpses of herself in the reflective surfaces around the lobby. The mark was darkening into a bruise, impossible to hide. At 11:47 a.m., Nathan Cross walked through the revolving doors. Victoria's chest tightened with relief. Nathan was 32, tall and lean, with sandy brown hair that always looked slightly disheveled despite his expensive suits. Today he wore navy blue with a silver tie, his gray eyes scanning the lobby until they found her. His expression shifted from concern to barely contained fury when he saw her face. He approached the desk with measured steps, his lawyer's composure firmly in place. To anyone watching, he was just another guest. But Victoria could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands clenched at his sides. I need to speak with you, he said quietly. Now. Victoria glanced at Simone, who waved her away. Go. I've got the desk. They walked in silence to the hotel's business center, a small room lined with computers and printers that was mercifully empty. The moment the door closed, Nathan's composure cracked. Let me see. He gently tilted her face toward the light, his touch feather soft as he examined the bruise. His eyes blazed. I'm going to destroy him. Get in line, Victoria said dryly. But we do this smart, Nathan, legally airtight. I want him buried so deep he never sees daylight again. Nathan pulled out his phone and took several photos of her face from different angles, documenting the injury. Tell me exactly what happened, every word, every action. Victoria recounted the encounter, her voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath. Nathan listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. Witnesses? He asked when she finished. At least 20 people in the lobby, plus security cameras covering every angle. Good. That's assault and battery, possibly harassment. We can file criminal charges and a civil suit. Nathan's mind was already working. She could see it. But you said you want more than that. I want everything. Victoria's eyes glittered. His reputation, his business deals, his untouchable image. I want the world to see who Derek Stone really is. Nathan nodded slowly. The West Shore acquisition. Exactly. Victoria pulled out her own phone, opening an encrypted file. Derek needs our approval for that deal. The contract has a morality clause. If either party engages in behavior that could damage the reputation of the combined business entities, the deal can be terminated. Assaulting an employee definitely qualifies, Nathan said. But there's more, isn't there? You've been investigating him. Victoria smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. I've been investigating everyone who does business with Ashford Holdings. Derek Stone has a pattern. This isn't the first time he's been accused of assault or harassment. There were 2 settlements in the past 4 years, both with NDAs attached. One was a female executive at his own company. Another was a hotel staff member in Los Angeles. How did you... I have resources. Victoria's tone made it clear she wouldn't elaborate. The settlements were buried under shell companies and legal paperwork, but they exist, and I can prove it. Nathan let out a low whistle. If we can break those NDAs, show a pattern of behavior, we can do more than terminate the West Shore deal. We can tank his entire public image. Victoria's voice was cold, clinical. Investors will flee. Board members will revolt. His company's stock will plummet. Victoria. Nathan caught her hand, his voice gentler. I need you to be sure about this. Once we start this, there's no going back. Derek Stone is a powerful man with powerful friends. He'll fight dirty. Let him. Victoria's fingers intertwined with Nathan's, drawing strength from the contact. I'm not the scared girl who lost her father 7 months ago. I'm not the naive heiress playing dress-up. I built this. I know every corner of this business, and nobody gets to treat people like that in my hotel. Something shifted in Nathan's expression. Admiration, pride, and something deeper that Victoria had been pretending not to notice for months. You're remarkable, you know that? Before Victoria could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from Simone. Got your recordings. Marcus saved everything to a secure drive. Also, FYI, Stone just came down and complained to management that you should be fired. General manager told him they'd look into it. Thought you should know. Victoria showed the message to Nathan, who laughed bitterly. He's trying to get you fired for his own assault. The audacity is almost impressive. He's used to getting away with everything. Victoria stood straightening her blazer. Not this time. Let's go get those recordings. They found Marcus in the security office, a stocky man in his 50s with kind eyes and a gray mustache. He looked troubled when they entered. Simone said you needed the footage from this morning, he said to Victoria, his eyes lingering on her bruised cheek. I'm really sorry about what happened, Vicky. That guy's a piece of work. You have no idea, Victoria murmured. Can we see it? Marcus pulled up the footage on his main monitor. Victoria and Nathan watched in silence as the scene played out from multiple angles. The cameras had captured everything. Derek's aggressive body language, the way he invaded Victoria's space, the exact moment his hand connected with her face. The sound was clear. Every insult, every demeaning word. This is gold, Nathan said quietly. Multiple angles, clear audio, timestamp verified. Any decent prosecutor would salivate over this. Can you save copies? Victoria asked Marcus. The security chief hesitated. Technically, I'm only supposed to release footage to police or upper management. Marcus. Victoria made a decision. She pulled out her real wallet from her purse, the one she never carried as Vicky Torres, and showed him her driver's license. Victoria Ashford, born June 15, 1999, Manhattan address. Marcus's eyes went wide. Wait, you're the Ashford? Richard Ashford's daughter. Yes. And this hotel, this entire company, is mine. I need those recordings, Marcus, please. The security chief looked between Victoria and Nathan, processing. You've been working here as a regular employee? Why? That's not important right now. What's important is that you witnessed an assault on your employer. I need your help. Marcus nodded slowly, then faster. Absolutely, Ms. Ashford. I'll save copies to an encrypted drive right now. And if you need me to testify, I will. What he did was wrong, boss or no boss. While Marcus worked, Nathan stepped closer to Victoria. You're revealing yourself. Are you ready for that? Not completely. Not yet. Victoria watched the footage play again, Derek's hand connecting with her face in slow motion. But we're getting there. First, I want to gather everything. Every piece of evidence, every witness statement, every skeleton in Derek Stone's closet. And then, she smiled, and it was predatory. Then I'm going to introduce Mr. Stone to the real Victoria Ashford. Nathan's phone buzzed. He checked it and frowned. Speaking of Derek Stone, he just posted on social media. You need to see this. He turned his phone toward Victoria. Derek's Twitter account, with its 2 million followers, displayed a new post from 15 minutes ago, dealing with incompetent hotel staff at Grand Meridian NYC. When you pay premium prices, you expect premium service. Instead, got attitude from a front desk clerk who couldn't handle basic requests. Service industry needs serious quality control. Your customer service fail. Grand Meridian. Victoria's hands curled into fists. He's trying to control the narrative, making himself the victim. It gets worse. Nathan scrolled down. Look at the replies. Hundreds of responses most sympathetic to Derek. Rich people problems, but still annoying. Fire that employee. You should demand a refund. A few people defended the unnamed employee, but they were drowned out by Derek's supporters. He has no idea what's coming, Victoria said softly. Marcus handed her a small hard drive. Everything's here. 3 different angles, full audio, timestamp certified. I also included footage from the last hour showing Mr. Stone's behavior in the elevator and hallways. Let's just say he was rude to several other staff members too. Thank you, Marcus. This stays between us for now. Understood, Ms. Ashford. Victoria and Nathan left the security office, the hard drive secure in her purse. As they walked through the employee corridors, Nathan spoke. What's your next move? I'm going to finish my shift, Victoria said. I'm going to go home tonight and review every piece of evidence we have. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to call an emergency board meeting of Ashford Holdings. And Derek? Let him enjoy his champagne and his righteous indignation. Victoria's smile was ice. He has about 36 hours left before his entire world comes crashing down. They reached the lobby where Simone was dealing with an influx of afternoon check-ins. Victoria started to return to her position, but Nathan caught her arm. Victoria, wait. There's something I need to say. She turned, surprised by the intensity in his eyes. Watching you today, seeing how you handled that situation with such grace and strength. Nathan paused, choosing his words carefully. I've known you since you were 20 years old. I watched you grieve your father, shoulder this impossible burden, fight to protect his legacy. And every day I'm more in awe of who you are. Victoria's throat tightened. Nathan, I know this isn't the time. I know we have work to do, but I needed you to know. His hand was still on her arm, warm and steady. You're not alone in this fight. Whatever happens, I'm with you. For a moment, standing in the elegant hallway of her father's hotel with a bruise on her face and fire in her heart, Victoria allowed herself to lean into that support. Thank you for everything. Nathan smiled, genuine and warm. Now go finish your shift, Ms. Torres. Show them what you're made of. Victoria returned to the front desk, her head high despite the pain. Derek Stone thought he'd broken her spirit, shown her her place. He thought he was untouchable, protected by wealth and power and lawyers. He was wrong on every count, and very soon he would know it. Victoria's penthouse apartment, Upper East Side, Manhattan. Thursday, March 14th, 9:34 p.m. Victoria stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse, a glass of Cabernet Sauvignon untouched in her hand. The Manhattan skyline glittered below her like a constellation of earthbound stars. Somewhere in that sea of light, Derek Stone was probably celebrating what he thought was a victory, putting an insolent employee in her place. He had no idea the hammer was about to fall. Her apartment was a study in understated luxury. Minimalist furniture in cream and gray tones, original artwork on the walls, a Rothko her father had purchased at auction, a hopper that had been in the family for decades. The space was open and airy, nothing like the cramped studio apartment that Vicky Torres supposedly rented in Queens. That apartment existed, of course. Victoria had rented it specifically for her cover story, even furnished it with thrift store finds and lived-in details. She'd stayed there twice just to make sure the neighbors saw her. But this was home. This was where Victoria Ashford could breathe. Her laptop sat open on the dining table, multiple windows displaying the evidence she and Nathan had compiled. Security footage, financial records, sealed court documents that had cost a small fortune to obtain through carefully legal channels. The bruise on her face had darkened to a deep purple, and she'd documented it with photos every 2 hours as Nathan had instructed. Her phone buzzed. Nathan, just left the office. Compiled everything into a presentation for tomorrow's board meeting. You're going to want to see this. Can I come up? Victoria smiled slightly. Nathan had been coming up more frequently in recent months, though they both pretended it was always about business. She typed back, "Doors open. I ordered Thai food. Hope you haven't eaten. You're a mind reader. Be there in 20. While she waited, Victoria reviewed the dossier on Derek Stone one more time. Born into old money, his grandfather had made a fortune in steel manufacturing. Derek had taken the family wealth and multiplied it through aggressive tech investments in the early 2000s. Stone Enterprises now had holdings in everything from cloud computing to commercial real estate. But success had made him careless, arrogant, Victoria's investigation had uncovered a pattern spanning nearly a decade. Derek Stone treated people as commodities, especially women, especially those he perceived as beneath his social status. The 2 settlements Nathan had mentioned were just the tip of the iceberg. There was Jessica Chen, a marketing director at Stone Enterprises who'd resigned abruptly in 2021. The official story was pursuing other opportunities. The reality, buried in sealed arbitration documents, was that Derek had cornered her at a company retreat, made explicit advances, and when she refused, systematically destroyed her career trajectory until she had no choice but to leave with a settlement and an NDA. There was Maria Rodriguez, a housekeeper at the Beverly Hills Grand Hotel, who'd been cleaning Derek's suite when he emerged from the shower and propositioned her. When she declined, he'd complained to management that she'd stolen from him. The hotel's investigation cleared her, but Derek's lawyers had still pushed for a settlement to avoid bad publicity, and those were just the cases that had resulted in legal action. Victoria had found 3 more women willing to talk off the record: former employees, service workers, professional contacts, all with similar stories of Derek's entitled behavior, his belief that money gave him the right to treat people however he wanted. The doorbell chimed. Victoria opened it to find Nathan holding a leather briefcase in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, looking pleasantly disheveled in a way that made Victoria's heart skip. "I brought reinforcements," he said, holding up the wine. 2015 Barolo. Figured we'd need it. "We have an entire presentation to review and a board meeting to prepare for," Victoria said, stepping aside to let him in. "Which is exactly why we need good wine." Nathan set down his briefcase and immediately moved to the kitchen, comfortable in her space in a way that felt natural. He'd been here dozens of times over the past year, always professional, always maintaining appropriate boundaries. But lately, those boundaries had been shifting. Victoria watched him open the wine with practiced ease, pour 2 glasses. He handed her one and raised his own. "To justice, and to the woman brave enough to demand it." They clinked glasses and Victoria took a sip. The wine was excellent, rich and complex. You didn't have to bring the expensive stuff. Tonight felt like an expensive stuff kind of night. Nathan's eyes were serious as they studied her face. "How are you, really? And don't give me the stoic heiress routine, I want the truth." Victoria set down her glass and sank onto the leather couch, suddenly exhausted. "I'm angry. I'm so angry I can barely think straight sometimes. But I'm also..." She paused, searching for the word. "Energized. Does that make sense? Like I've finally found the purpose I've been looking for since Dad died." Nathan sat beside her, close but not touching. "It makes perfect sense. Your father taught you that with great privilege comes great responsibility. You're honoring that. Dad would have handled this differently," Victoria said quietly. "He would have confronted Derek immediately, used his authority to crush him in a single move. Efficient, brutal, over in 24 hours. But you're not your father." "No, I'm not." Victoria looked at Nathan. "I want Derek to understand what he did wrong. I want him to feel the consequences, not just suffer them. There's a difference." Nathan nodded slowly. "Which is why you're better at this than Richard ever was. Don't get me wrong, your father was brilliant, but he saw business as war. You see it as something more complex. Or I'm just vindictive and want to watch him squirm," Victoria said with dark humor. "That too." Nathan smiled, then grew serious. "Let me show you what I've prepared for tomorrow." He opened his briefcase and pulled out a tablet, pulling up a sleek presentation. Victoria leaned closer, their shoulders touching as they reviewed the material together. Nathan had organized everything into a devastating narrative: Derek's pattern of behavior, the assault captured on video, the business implications for Ashford Holdings, and the recommended response. "Slide 17 is the key one," Nathan said, advancing the presentation. "This shows the morality clause in the West Shore acquisition contract. Derek's behavior yesterday constitutes a clear violation. We can terminate the deal immediately, which means Derek loses access to 5 premium properties he was planning to flip for a projected 40% profit." "How much money are we talking about?" Victoria asked. "Conservative estimate? He stands to lose about $200 million when the deal falls through." Nathan's smile was grim, but it gets better. Slides 20 through 23 show Derek's current leveraged position. He borrowed heavily to finance the West Shore purchase, expecting a quick turnaround. If the deal collapses, he's overextended. His creditors will call in loans. His stock will tank. He might not go bankrupt, but he'll be severely damaged. Victoria studied the financial projections, her business mind analyzing every angle. This is good. This is very good. But I want more than financial damage, Nathan. I want accountability. Which brings us to slides 24 through 30. Nathan advanced the presentation. This is the public relations strategy. We don't just kill the deal quietly. We hold a press conference. We show the security footage, redacted to protect your identity initially, if you want. We release statements from other victims who are willing to come forward now that someone's finally standing up to him. We make this a moment. Victoria's breath caught. You found other victims willing to talk? 3 so far, including Jessica Chen. Once I explained that you were prepared to go public, that they wouldn't be alone, they agreed to break their NDAs. Derek's lawyers will scream, but judges don't look kindly on NDAs that conceal patterns of assault and harassment. Nathan's voice was passionate now. Victoria, we can't just take Derek down. We can change the conversation. How many other powerful men are getting away with this because their victims are isolated and afraid? Victoria stood, pacing to the windows. Her reflection stared back at her, a young woman with a bruised face and fire in her eyes. If we do this, there's no going back. I'll have to reveal who I am. The whole working undercover as an employee thing will become public knowledge. Is that a problem? I don't know. Victoria turned to face him. I started this investigation to find whoever was embezzling from the company, but somewhere along the way it became about more than that. It became about understanding my own business from the ground up, seeing how my employees are treated, what their lives are actually like. I learned more in 3 months as Vicky Torres than I did in 4 years at Harvard Business School. Nathan stood, crossing to her. Then tell that story, don't hide it. Show people that you're not some out-of-touch heiress playing games. You're someone who cares enough about your employees to walk in their shoes. The board will think I'm insane. The board answers to you. You control 51% of Ashford Holdings stock. Nathan's hands settled gently on her shoulders. Victoria, you're about to do something incredibly brave. Don't second-guess yourself now. She looked up at him, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. Nathan's gray eyes were warm, earnest, filled with something that made her heart race. When did you figure it out? She asked softly. That you had feelings for me? Nathan blinked, surprised by the question. A slow smile spread across his face. Honest answer? About 2 years ago, you'd just closed the Miami property deal, saved 50 jobs in the process. You were so happy, so animated, talking about how the hotel manager cried when you told him everyone could keep their positions. And I thought, this is the woman I want to spend my life with. Victoria's throat tightened. Why didn't you say anything? Because you'd just lost your father. You were grieving, taking on an empire, dealing with everything that entails. The last thing you needed was your lawyer complicating things with inconvenient feelings. Nathan's thumb traced gentle circles on her shoulder. I decided I could wait. That being your friend, your advisor, your support was enough. And if you never saw me as more than that, I'd accept it. Nathan, but then I watched you today, he continued, his voice rough with emotion. I watched you take that hit, stand tall, refuse to break, and I realized that I don't just have feelings for you, Victoria. I'm completely, hopelessly in love with you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with truth. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes, the first tears she'd allowed herself since the assault. I can't think about this right now. I can't process. I know, and I'm not asking you to. Nathan's hand slid down to take hers. I'm just telling you the truth, because tomorrow we're going to war, and I wanted you to know that I'm not just fighting for Ashford Holdings or for justice. I'm fighting for you, because you deserve someone who will stand beside you, not behind you or in front of you. Beside you. Victoria squeezed his hands, holding on like an anchor. Ask me again, after this is over, after we've dealt with Derek and the board and everything else. Ask me then. That's a promise. Nathan raised her hands to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. Now let's go over this presentation one more time. I want tomorrow to be perfect. They worked until after midnight, refining every slide, anticipating every question the board might ask. Victoria called in favors, confirmed that all 12 board members would attend the emergency meeting. Nathan coordinated with the 3 women willing to break their NDAs, prepared statements, ensured their legal protection. At 1:47 a.m., Victoria's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Ms. Ashford. The voice was female, nervous, young. You don't know me. My name is Emily Stevens. I work at Stone Enterprises in accounting. Victoria's pulse quickened. She put the phone on speaker so Nathan could hear. "How did you get this number, Emily?" "I have friends who have friends. Listen, I don't have much time. Derek doesn't know I know this, but I handle his expense reports. Ms. Ashford, what happened to you at the hotel? That wasn't the first time. It wasn't even the first time this month." "What do you mean?" Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. "There was an incident in Chicago 2 weeks ago. A restaurant hostess. Derek threw a drink at her because his table wasn't ready. His assistant paid her off before it could become a problem. And before that, there was something in Boston. A driver. Derek got physical with him over a traffic delay." Victoria and Nathan exchanged glances. "Emily, would you be willing to provide documentation, expense reports, payment records?" "That's why I'm calling. I've been documenting everything for 6 months. I have receipts, emails, bank transfers. Derek uses company money to pay off his victims, which means he's committing fraud on top of assault." Emily paused. "My little sister works in hospitality. When I saw Derek's tweet about what happened at your hotel, I knew it was time to do something." "Emily, what you're describing could end your career at Stone Enterprises." "Good. I don't want to work for a monster." The young woman's voice strengthened. "Tell me what you need, and I'll get it to you." Victoria looked at Nathan, who nodded encouragingly. "We're holding a press conference tomorrow at 2 p.m. If you can get us those documents by noon, you'll have them by 10 a.m. Email, okay?" "Perfect. Emily, thank you. You're incredibly brave." "No, Ms. Ashford, you're the brave one. What you're doing, it matters. It matters to all of us." Emily hung up before Victoria could respond. Nathan let out a low whistle. This just became a corporate fraud case on top of everything else. Derek's not just going to lose his reputation and his deal. He might actually face criminal charges. Victoria's smile was sharp. Good. He should. At 2:30 a.m., Victoria finally sent Nathan home, despite his offers to stay and work longer. She needed a few hours alone to prepare herself mentally for what was coming. She stood in her bathroom, examining the bruise on her face one last time. By tomorrow afternoon, the whole world would see it. She'd be vulnerable, exposed, a victim in the public eye, but she'd also be powerful. She'd be the woman who said, "Enough." Victoria pulled out her phone and opened Twitter. Derek's post about the incompetent hotel staff had gotten even more engagement, over 5,000 retweets, 10,000 likes. People were tagging Grand Meridian's official account, demanding the employee be fired. She typed out a response, her fingers steady. Derek Stone, you're right about one thing. Service industry does need quality control, starting with how customers treat service workers. Accountability is coming. Grand Meridian, tomorrow. Victoria hovered over the post button for a long moment, then pressed it. The tweet went live from her personal account. Victoria Ashford, verified with a modest 20,000 followers built mostly from business connections. The response was immediate. Comments flooded in, people making the connection between her last name and the Grand Meridian. Derek's supporters started tagging him, warning him that he'd apparently picked a fight with hotel royalty. Victoria turned off her phone and climbed into bed. Tomorrow would be the most important day of her life. Tomorrow, Derek Stone would learn what happened when you underestimated Victoria Ashford. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, she let herself feel scared, just for a moment. Scared of the scrutiny, the backlash, the vulnerability. Then she remembered the feeling of Derek's hand connecting with her face, remembered the look in his eyes that said she was nothing. Fear transformed into resolve. She'd fought for her father's legacy in boardrooms and courtrooms. Now she'd fight for every person who'd ever been made to feel small by someone who thought power made them untouchable. Derek Stone was about to learn a very expensive lesson. Victoria Ashford was nobody's victim. She was the storm. Ashford Holdings headquarters, Midtown Manhattan, Friday, March 15th, 9:47 a.m. The boardroom on the 42nd floor of Ashford Holdings was designed to intimidate. A 30-foot mahogany table dominated the center, surrounded by leather chairs that had cost more than most people's cars. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Manhattan, the city spread out below like a kingdom waiting to be conquered. Richard Ashford had designed this room to remind people that they were in the presence of power. Today, Victoria would use it for exactly that purpose. She stood at the head of the table in a charcoal gray Alexander McQueen suit, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. The bruise on her face was visible despite the makeup she'd carefully applied. She wanted it visible. Nathan stood beside her, his own armor a three-piece navy suit, a flash drive containing their presentation in his hand. The board members filtered in one by one. 12 men and women who'd built careers in hospitality, finance, and real estate. Most had worked with Richard Ashford for decades. They'd watched Victoria grow up, had attended her graduation parties, had sent flowers when Richard died. But in this room, sentimentality meant nothing. This was business. Margaret Chen, the oldest board member at 72, was the first to notice Victoria's face. Her eyes widened behind her designer glasses. "Victoria, what happened to you?" "That's why we're here, Margaret." Victoria's voice was steady, commanding. "Please, everyone take your seats, we have a lot to discuss." Robert Walsh, the CFO and Richard's oldest friend, frowned as he sat down. "This is highly irregular. Calling an emergency meeting with less than 24 hours' notice. I had to cancel a golf game with the mayor." "I'm sure the mayor will survive," Victoria cut him off smoothly. "Thank you all for coming on short notice. What we're about to discuss required immediate attention. Nathan, if you would." Nathan connected his laptop to the room's projection system. The Ashford Holdings logo appeared on the massive screen behind Victoria. "What you're about to see is disturbing," Nathan began, his lawyer's voice clear and authoritative. "It involves an assault that occurred yesterday morning at the Grand Meridian Hotel in Manhattan. It involves one of our potential business partners. And it involves the CEO of this company." Confused murmurs rippled around the table. David Park, the youngest board member at 45, leaned forward. "I'm sorry, what do you mean it involves Victoria? She wasn't at the Grand Meridian yesterday, she was—" He stopped, noticing Victoria's expression. "Wait, she was? For the past 3 months?" Victoria said calmly. "I've been working undercover at the Grand Meridian as a front desk receptionist under the name Vicky Torres." The room exploded. "You what?" Robert Walsh's face turned red. "Victoria, that's insane. You're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. You can't just—" "I can, and I did." Victoria's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "I had my reasons, which I'll explain. But first I need you all to watch something." Nathan pressed play. The security footage filled the screen, showing the Grand Meridian lobby from 3 angles simultaneously. The board members watched in stunned silence as Derek Stone berated Victoria, invaded her space, and finally struck her across the face. The sound of the slap echoed through the boardroom's speakers, obscenely loud. Margaret Chen gasped. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Robert Walsh's expression shifted from anger to shock to barely contained fury. When the footage ended, the silence was deafening. "That," Victoria said quietly, "is Derek Stone, CEO of Stone Enterprises. The man we've been negotiating with for approval of the West Shore Collection acquisition. The man who believes his wealth entitles him to treat people however he wants." "Jesus Christ," David Park muttered. "Victoria, I'm so sorry. Have you filed charges? Is he in custody?" "Not yet, but he will be." Nathan advanced to the next slide, showing Derek's tweet from the previous day. "After assaulting Victoria, Mr. Stone went on social media to paint himself as the victim of poor service. He has 2 million followers. This tweet has been shared over 8,000 times. That son of a bitch," Robert Walsh growled. "We need to sue him into oblivion. I'll call our legal team." "There's more," Victoria interrupted. "The assault wasn't an isolated incident." "Nathan?" The next series of slides detailed Derek's pattern of behavior. Jessica Chen's case, Maria Rodriguez's case, the incidents Emily Stevens had documented, financial records showing payoffs disguised as business expenses, testimony from multiple victims. By the time Nathan finished, the board members looked ill. "This is a pattern of abuse spanning nearly a decade," Nathan concluded, "and Stone Enterprises has been using corporate funds to cover it up, which constitutes fraud." Margaret Chen removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. "What do you want to do, Victoria?" "Several things." Victoria pulled up a document on the screen. "First, I'm invoking the morality clause in the West Shore acquisition contract. Derek Stone's behavior constitutes a clear violation. The deal is terminated, effective immediately. Ashford Holdings will not do business with Stone Enterprises under any circumstances, now or in the future." Heads nodded around the table. No objections. "Second, I'm filing criminal charges for assault and battery. The Manhattan DA's office already has the evidence. They're preparing an arrest warrant as we speak." "Good," David Park said firmly. "He should be in jail." "Third, and this is where I need board approval." Victoria took a deep breath. "I'm calling a press conference this afternoon at 2 p.m. I'm going public with everything. The assault, Derek's history, and yes, the fact that I've been working undercover in our own hotel." Robert Walsh leaned back, processing. "You want to make this a public scandal?" I want to make this a public reckoning, Victoria corrected. How many other Derek Stones are out there getting away with this because their victims are afraid to speak up? How many employees in our industry face abuse and harassment because powerful guests think they're untouchable? Her voice grew passionate. My father built this company on excellence, but excellence isn't just about thread counts and marble lobbies. It's about how we treat people, all people. The media will have a field day, Margaret warned. They'll scrutinize everything. Your decision to work undercover, your motives, your competence as CEO. Are you prepared for that? Yes. Victoria met each board member's eyes in turn. I'm 26 years old. I inherited this company 7 months ago. People already doubt me, already whisper that I'm not ready, that I'm just a rich girl playing at business. Let them scrutinize. Let them question. When they're done, they'll see someone who cares enough about her employees to work beside them. Someone who won't let abuse happen in her hotels. Someone who has the courage to hold powerful men accountable. Silence fell over the room. Then Robert Walsh started clapping. Slowly at first, then enthusiastically. Margaret joined him, then David. Then the entire board rose to their feet in applause. Victoria felt tears threaten but blinked them back. I need a formal vote. All in favor of terminating the West Shore deal and supporting the press conference? 12 hands rose without hesitation. It's unanimous, Robert said, his voice rough with emotion. Your father would be so proud of you, Victoria. I'm proud of you. Thank you. All of you. Victoria glanced at her watch. Nathan and I have several more preparations before the press conference. I'll send detailed minutes from this meeting by end of day. Please keep everything we discussed confidential until 2 p.m. As the board members filed out, several stopped to hug Victoria or squeeze her shoulder. Margaret lingered last. Victoria, dear, what you said about your father being proud, it's true, but I want you to know something else. You're already a better leader than Richard ever was. He saw business as conquest. You see it as responsibility. Don't ever lose that. After Margaret left, Victoria sagged against the table, suddenly exhausted. Nathan was immediately at her side. You were magnificent. Did you see their faces? They believe in you completely. Phase 1 complete, Victoria said, straightening. Now comes the hard part. Her phone buzzed. A message from Emily Stevens. Documents sent. Everything you need. Also, Derek just called an emergency meeting with his board. Word is spreading. Good luck today. Another message, this one from Detective Maria Santos of the NYPD. Warrant approved. We'll execute arrest at 3 p.m. after your press conference. Wanted to give you your moment first. He's going to be blindsided. Victoria showed the messages to Nathan, who smiled grimly. It's all coming together. Are you ready for this afternoon? No. Yes. I don't know. Victoria walked to the windows, looking out over the city. Nathan, what if I'm wrong? What if going public makes things worse? What if... Hey. Nathan turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her arms. You're not wrong. You're never wrong about things like this. You have a moral compass that's absolutely true, Victoria. Trust it. She looked up at him, drawing strength from his steady presence. After today, everything changes. Our working relationship, my public profile, how people see me, everything was already changing, Nathan said softly. This just accelerates it. And for what it's worth, I think you're about to change the whole industry. People are going to start asking hard questions about how we treat service workers, about accountability for the wealthy, about abuse of power. You're starting a conversation that's long overdue. Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her breath caught. It's Derek. Nathan's eyes sharpened. Don't answer. But Victoria was already pressing accept, putting it on speaker. This is Victoria Ashford. Ms. Ashford. Derek's voice was smooth, controlled, but Victoria could hear the undercurrent of anger. I believe we need to have a conversation about certain misunderstandings yesterday. Misunderstandings, Victoria repeated, her voice flat. Is that what you're calling assault now? A pause. When Derek spoke again, his tone had shifted to barely concealed threat. I don't know what game you're playing, but I've done some research since your cryptic tweet last night. Victoria Ashford, daughter of Richard Ashford, owner of the Grand Meridian. The little receptionist was actually the boss, very clever. I wasn't trying to be clever. I was doing my job. Your job. Derek laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to know what I think? I think you set me up. Worked undercover, waited for an opportunity to create an incident, probably have it all documented. What's your angle? Trying to kill the West Shore deal? Because that's not going to work, sweetheart. I have lawyers who will. Your lawyers can't help you, Victoria interrupted calmly. The West Shore deal is already dead. My board voted unanimously to terminate this morning. You violated the morality clause, Derek. It's over. Another pause. Longer this time. You can't do that. We have a contract with a morality clause that you violated when you assaulted an employee. My employee. Me. Victoria's voice hardened. And that's just the beginning. At 2 p.m. today, I'm holding a press conference where I'll be sharing security footage of your assault, along with documentation of your pattern of abusive behavior over the past decade. The Manhattan DA's office has already issued an arrest warrant. By 3 p.m., you'll be in custody. You're bluffing. But Derek's voice had lost its confidence. Am I? Ask yourself, would I call your bluff if I were bluffing? Would I risk my reputation, my company's reputation, if I didn't have ironclad evidence? Victoria paused, letting that sink in. You made a mistake yesterday, Derek. You assumed I was nobody. You assumed you could treat me however you wanted because you're rich and powerful and nobody ever held you accountable before. You were wrong. Listen to me very carefully. Derek's voice dropped to a growl. If you go through with this, I will destroy you. I have connections you can't imagine. I'll tie you up in lawsuits for years. I'll short your company's stock. I'll make sure every business publication in America questions your competence. By the time I'm done, You'll what? Victoria's voice was ice. You'll hit me again? Oh wait, you already did that. And I have it on video from 3 angles with crystal clear audio. Threaten me all you want, Derek. It just gives my lawyers more ammunition. Nathan was watching her with something like awe, a small smile playing at his lips. This isn't over, Derek hissed. Yes, it is. It's been over since the moment your hand touched my face. You just didn't know it yet. Victoria's voice softened, became almost pitying. Here's what's going to happen, Derek. You're going to call your lawyers and your PR team and try to do damage control. They're going to tell you that your best option is to settle quietly, issue an apology, maybe do some kind of anger management rehab for optics. And you're going to ignore their advice because you're arrogant and you think you can fight your way out of this. You don't know anything about, but you can't fight video evidence. You can't fight multiple victims. You can't fight the fact that you used corporate funds to pay off your victims, which is fraud. So here's my advice. Get a good criminal defense attorney. You're going to need one. Victoria paused. Oh, and Derek, don't ever call me sweetheart. She hung up. Nathan let out a low whistle. That was something. Remind me never to get on your bad side. Victoria's hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Did I just make things worse? No. You just showed him that he's dealing with someone who won't be intimidated. That was perfect. Nathan checked his watch. We have 4 hours until the press conference. Let's run through your statement one more time, then grab lunch. You need to eat something. They spent the next 2 hours preparing, refining Victoria's statement, anticipating hostile questions from reporters. At noon, Emily Stevens's documents arrived, a damning paper trail of Derek's payoffs and abuse of company resources. Nathan immediately forwarded everything to the DA's office. At 1 p.m., Victoria's phone exploded with calls. News had leaked, probably from Derek's camp trying to control the narrative, but it was too late. The press conference was already scheduled, media outlets already planning to attend. Victoria ignored the calls and focused on her breathing, on staying centered. At 1:30 p.m., she and Nathan left for the press conference venue, a hotel ballroom that Ashford Holdings owned near Times Square. The room was already packed with reporters, cameras, and curious onlookers. Victoria could see representatives from CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, The New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and dozens of other outlets. Nathan squeezed her hand. You've got this. Just tell the truth. The truth is powerful enough. Victoria nodded, straightened her shoulders, and walked toward the podium. The room fell silent as she approached, dozens of cameras focusing on her face, specifically on the bruise that makeup couldn't quite hide. She stepped up to the microphone, looked out at the sea of faces, and began. Good afternoon, my name is Victoria Ashford, CEO of Ashford Holdings. Yesterday morning, I was assaulted by Derek Stone, CEO of Stone Enterprises, while working undercover as a receptionist at the Grand Meridian Hotel. I'm here today to tell you what happened, why it matters, and what we're going to do about it. The room erupted in a frenzy of flashing cameras and shouted questions. Victoria waited for silence, then continued. But first, I want you to see what happened, because you need to understand that this isn't about me. This is about every service worker who has ever been abused by someone who thought their money made them untouchable. Nathan pressed play on the video feed. The assault played on screens throughout the room. Victoria watched the reporters' faces as they processed what they were seeing. Shock, disgust, anger. When the video ended, Victoria looked directly into the cameras and said, "This ends now. In our hotels, in our industry, in our society, this ends now." The room exploded into chaos, but Victoria stood firm, ready to answer every question, ready to tell her story, ready to change everything. Press conference venue, Times Square, Manhattan. Friday, March 15th, 2:47 p.m. The questions came like bullets, rapid fire and relentless. "Ms. Ashford, why did you choose to work undercover instead of implementing standard oversight procedures? Was this a publicity stunt to gain sympathy? How do we know this wasn't staged? What's your relationship with Derek Stone beyond this incident?" Victoria stood at the podium, her posture unwavering despite the onslaught. She'd prepared for this, the skepticism, the victim blaming, the attempts to discredit her. Nathan stood just off stage, ready to intervene if needed, but Victoria didn't need rescuing. She pointed to a reporter from the New York Times, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes. "Ms. Patterson, go ahead. Ms. Ashford, you mentioned working undercover for 3 months. What were you investigating? And doesn't this raise questions about trust within your organization, if you felt the need to spy on your own employees?" It was a fair question, one Victoria had anticipated. "I wasn't spying on employees. 3 months ago, our internal audits flagged irregular financial activity, small amounts being siphoned from multiple properties. Rather than conduct a heavy-handed investigation that would have created paranoia among innocent staff, I chose to embed myself in daily operations to observe firsthand how our systems functioned and where vulnerabilities existed." "And did you find your embezzler?" another reporter shouted. "Yes. Gerald Morrison, a regional manager, was arrested 2 weeks ago. He'd been skimming funds for 18 months. The investigation is ongoing, but I'm confident we've closed that security gap." Victoria paused. "But what I found working those 3 months was more valuable than catching one thief. I learned how our employees really work, what challenges they face daily, and yes, how some guests treat them. Derek Stone's assault wasn't an anomaly. It was the most extreme example of a much larger problem in the hospitality industry." A male reporter from Fox News jumped in, his tone aggressive. "So you're saying you put yourself in this situation deliberately? That you could have avoided this assault by simply identifying yourself as the owner?" Victoria's eyes hardened. "Are you suggesting that I'm somehow responsible for being assaulted? That because I chose to work as a receptionist I deserve to be struck? I'm saying you had options. Every woman has options until a man decides to hit her." Victoria cut him off sharply. "Should every receptionist quit their job because a guest might assault them? Should every service worker identify themselves as important enough to deserve basic human respect?" She leaned into the microphone. "Here's what I'm saying. Derek Stone hit me because he believed my position made me inferior. He believed his wealth entitled him to treat me however he wanted. And that belief system is what we need to dismantle." The room erupted in a fresh wave of questions, but Victoria held up her hand. "I have more to share, Nathan." Nathan stepped forward, distributing folders to the front rows of reporters. "What you're receiving is documentation of Derek Stone's pattern of abusive behavior over the past decade. We have testimony from Jessica Chen, former marketing director at Stone Enterprises, who was sexually harassed and constructively dismissed when she refused his advances. Maria Rodriguez, a hotel housekeeper in Los Angeles, who was falsely accused of theft after rejecting Derek's proposition. And 3 other women who have agreed to break their non-disclosure agreements to speak publicly." A reporter from CNN raised her hand. "Ms. Ashford, these are explosive allegations. Derek Stone's lawyers are already releasing statements calling this a coordinated attack on his character. They're threatening defamation suits. What's your response?" "My response is evidence." Victoria's voice was steel. "Every claim we're making is documented. Security footage, financial records, sealed court documents, testimony from multiple independent sources. Derek can threaten all the lawsuits he wants. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation." "What about the West Shore collection deal?" a business reporter called out. "Sources say Stone Enterprises stands to lose hundreds of millions if that acquisition falls through. Are you using this incident as leverage to kill a competitor's business deal?" Victoria had expected this angle. The West Shore contract includes a standard morality clause. Derek Stone violated that clause when he assaulted me. My board voted unanimously this morning to terminate our participation in the deal. This isn't about competition. Stone Enterprises isn't even a direct competitor in our market segment. This is about refusing to do business with someone who has demonstrated a pattern of abuse and illegal behavior. Speaking of illegal behavior, Ms. Patterson from the Times interjected, "Your documentation shows Derek used corporate funds to pay off victims. That's fraud. Has this been reported to authorities?" "Yes. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office has been fully briefed. I expect Derek Stone will be facing criminal charges shortly." Victoria glanced at her watch. 2:53 p.m. 7 minutes until Derek's arrest. She needed to wrap this up, but the reporters weren't done. A young woman from a digital news outlet raised her hand. "Ms. Ashford, I want to ask about something you said earlier, about this being a larger industry problem. Can you elaborate?" Finally, the question Victoria had been waiting for. "Absolutely. The hospitality industry has operated under an outdated principle. The customer is always right. But that principle has been weaponized by people who believe money buys them the right to abuse staff. How many hotel workers, restaurant servers, flight attendants, and retail employees face harassment, assault, or degradation daily because they're afraid to defend themselves? Afraid they'll lose their jobs if they stand up to a valued customer?" Victoria's voice grew passionate, years of observation and frustration pouring out. "I watched it happen repeatedly during my 3 months undercover. Guests who snap their fingers at staff like they're summoning dogs. Guests who make inappropriate comments, who throw tantrums, who treat human beings as servants in the worst sense of the word. And management usually sides with the guest because we're afraid of bad reviews, of losing revenue, of lawsuits." "So what's your solution?" the young reporter pressed. "Ashford Holdings is implementing a new policy, effective immediately. Any guest who verbally abuses, physically threatens, or assaults our staff will be permanently banned from all our properties. No exceptions. No matter how much money they have, no matter what their social status. We're also creating a protected reporting system where employees can document abuse without fear of retaliation, and we're training all managers to prioritize employee safety over customer satisfaction." The room buzzed with reaction. Victoria continued, "And I'm calling on other hospitality companies to join us. Let's create an industry-wide blacklist. If someone is banned from Ashford Properties for abuse, they should be banned everywhere. Hit these people where it hurts. Their convenience, their status, their ability to continue their behavior without consequences." "That's a radical position," the Fox News reporter said. "Some would say it's anti-business. Some would be wrong," Victoria countered. "Employee retention is expensive. Training costs money. When we create environments where staff feel safe and valued, they stay longer, work better, and provide superior service. That's good business. What's bad business is enabling abusers and then dealing with lawsuits, bad publicity, and staff turnover when things inevitably explode." Nathan caught her eye and tapped his watch. Victoria nodded slightly. "I'll take 2 more questions, then we need to wrap up." A reporter from Wall Street Journal stood. "Ms. Ashford, you're 26 years old and only took over as CEO 7 months ago after your father's sudden death. Some critics have suggested you're not ready for this role, that this incident proves you're in over your head. How do you respond?" Victoria smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I'd respond that those critics probably wouldn't question a 26-year-old male CEO's competence if he stood up to workplace abuse. But to address the substance of your question, my age doesn't determine my capability. My actions do. In 7 months, I've increased company revenue by 12%, opened 2 new properties ahead of schedule, resolved a major embezzlement case, and today I'm holding a powerful man accountable for assault. If that's what being in over my head looks like, I'll take it." Applause broke out from several reporters. Even some of the skeptical ones looked impressed. "Last question," Victoria said, pointing to an older gentleman from a hospitality trade publication. "Ms. Ashford, what do you want Derek Stone's consequences to be? What would justice look like in your eyes?" Victoria paused, considering. "Honestly, I want Derek to understand what he did wrong. I want him to recognize that his wealth doesn't make him superior to anyone. I want him to face legal consequences for his actions. Yes, but more than that, I want him to change. I want him to become someone who treats people with dignity regardless of their job title or bank balance." She took a breath. "But failing that, I want him to serve as a warning. I want every person who thinks they can abuse service workers to see Derek Stone's career implode and think twice. Fear of consequences isn't as good as genuine respect, but it's a start." Nathan stepped forward. "That concludes our prepared remarks, Ms. Ashford will not be taking additional questions at this time. but we'll be releasing a full written statement within the hour. Thank you." As Victoria stepped away from the podium, the room erupted into a chaos of shouted questions and camera flashes. Nathan guided her through a side door where her security team waited. The moment the door closed behind them, Victoria's legs nearly gave out. "Steady," Nathan murmured, his arm immediately supporting her. "You did it? That was perfect." Victoria leaned against the wall, adrenaline draining away and leaving exhaustion in its wake. "Did I sound crazy? The part about industry-wide blacklists? You sounded revolutionary," Nathan said firmly. "Victoria, do you have any idea what you just did? You didn't just expose one bad man. You challenged an entire system. Twitter is already exploding. I've been monitoring on my phone. Ashford Standard is trending. People are sharing their own stories of abuse in service jobs. You started a movement." Before Victoria could respond, her phone rang. "Detective Santos." Victoria answered immediately. "Detective? Ms. Ashford, we're at Stone Enterprises now. Derek Stone was just taken into custody. He's being transported to the precinct for booking. Thought you'd want to know." Victoria closed her eyes, a wave of relief washing over her. "Thank you, Detective. What happens next?" "Arraignment probably Monday morning. Given his resources, he'll make bail, but he'll have conditions. Stay away from you, surrender his passport, the usual. The DA's office is building a strong case. Between your assault and the fraud charges from those corporate payoffs, he's looking at serious time if convicted." "Good. That's good." Victoria's voice shook slightly. "Ms. Ashford, I watched your press conference. What you did today took courage. Real courage. I've been a cop for 20 years and I've seen too many victims stay silent because they're afraid or ashamed. You used your voice. That matters." After hanging up, Victoria looked at Nathan. "He's arrested. It's really happening." Nathan pulled her into a hug and Victoria let herself lean into his strength for a moment. "You're incredible," he murmured into her hair. "Absolutely incredible." They were interrupted by Victoria's phone buzzing repeatedly. Messages flooded in. "Margaret Chen, watching your press conference. You made Richard proud today. Hell, you made me proud. Robert Walsh. Board is 100% behind you, whatever you need. Simone from the Grand Meridian. Vicky or Victoria. I just watched the news. I can't believe you're the owner. But also I'm not surprised because you were way too competent to be a new hire. Come back and visit us sometime as yourself." And dozens more from employees, business contacts, even strangers who'd found her contact information. But one message made Victoria's breath catch. From Jessica Chen, the Stone Enterprises executive who'd been harassed. "Thank you for being brave enough to go first. I've been hiding for 3 years. Not anymore. My lawyer is scheduling my own press conference for Monday. You started something important today." Victoria showed the message to Nathan, tears finally spilling over. "It's working. It's actually working." "Of course it is," Nathan said softly, wiping away her tears with his thumb. "Because you're Victoria Ashford, and when you decide to change the world doesn't stand a chance." They returned to Ashford Holdings headquarters, where the office was buzzing with energy. Employees who recognized Victoria from the press conference gave her thumbs up and quiet words of support. The legal team was already fielding calls from other companies wanting to discuss the industry blacklist proposal. HR was being contacted by hospitality workers nationwide sharing their own abuse stories. At 6 p.m., Victoria called a company-wide video conference. Every Ashford Holdings employee, from corporate executives to housekeeping staff, logged in to hear her speak. "I know today has been overwhelming," Victoria began, looking into the camera. "Many of you are learning for the first time that I've been working at the Grand Meridian as Vicky Torres. Some of you worked alongside me without knowing who I was. I want to address that directly." She took a breath. "I didn't go undercover because I don't trust you. I did it because I needed to understand our business from the ground up. I needed to see what your daily reality looks like, what challenges you face, how guests treat you. And what I learned was humbling. You work harder than I ever imagined. You deal with difficulties I never knew existed. And you do it with professionalism and grace even when guests treat you terribly." Victoria's voice strengthened. "What happened to me yesterday, Derek Stone's assault, is what I'm told happens regularly in this industry. Guests who yell, who demean, who sometimes get physical, and you're expected to just take it with a smile because the customer is always right. That ends today. I don't care if a guest is a billionaire or a celebrity or royalty. If they abuse you, they're out. Permanently. Your safety and dignity matter more than any amount of revenue. The chat window exploded with emoji reactions and comments. Hearts, applause, gratitude. Starting Monday, we're implementing new policies. Every property will have a protected reporting system. Every manager will undergo training on handling guest abuse, and we're creating an emergency response team. If you're dealing with a hostile guest, you can call for immediate backup. You will never have to face abuse alone. Victoria paused. This company was built by my father, but it belongs to all of us. We're a family, and I protect my family. The video conference ended with a standing ovation, even though Victoria couldn't see it through the screens. But she felt it, the shift in energy, the solidarity, the sense that something fundamental had changed. At 8 p.m., Nathan insisted Victoria eat something. They ordered Chinese food and ate in her office, watching news coverage of the press conference. Every major outlet was running the story. CNN had a panel of legal experts discussing the case. MSNBC was interviewing hospitality workers about their own experiences. Fox News was somewhat predictably questioning Victoria's motives, but even they couldn't completely dismiss the video evidence. And social media was on fire. Ashford Standard was the #1 trending topic on Twitter. Instagram was flooded with stories from service workers sharing abuse they'd endured. TikTok had videos of young hospitality workers reacting to Victoria's press conference, many in tears. "You've become a folk hero," Nathan observed, scrolling through his tablet. "Listen to this tweet. Victoria Ashford did what we all dream about. Stood up to an abusive rich asshole and actually won. She's giving a voice to every service worker who's ever been treated like dirt. 50,000 likes in 3 hours. Victoria set down her chopsticks, suddenly not hungry. This is so much bigger than I expected. I just wanted to hold Derek accountable." "You did, but you also gave people hope that the system can change. That matters, Victoria." Nathan reached across the desk to take her hand. "How are you really doing? Not CEO Victoria, not the woman who just gave a historic press conference. You, the woman who was assaulted yesterday." The question cracked something open inside her. "I'm angry, and scared, and exhausted, and weirdly energized. Is it possible to feel all of that at once? After what you've been through? Absolutely." Nathan's thumb traced circles on her palm. "You don't have to be strong all the time, you know. Not with me." Victoria looked at their joined hands, then up at Nathan's face. He was watching her with such tenderness that her chest ached. "Earlier you said you'd wait until this was over to ask me something. But I don't think this will ever really be over. There's going to be the trial, the media coverage, implementing all these new policies. Victoria, so don't wait." She squeezed his hand. "Ask me now." Nathan stood, moving around the desk to kneel beside her chair. He took both her hands in his. "Victoria Ashford, you're the bravest, most principled, most brilliant woman I've ever known. You challenge me, you inspire me, you make me want to be better than I am. I don't just love you, I'm in awe of you, and I would be honored, humbled, and grateful beyond measure if you would consider letting me be your partner, not just in business, but in everything." Victoria's eyes filled with tears for the second time that day. "That sounded like a proposal." "It's a pre-proposal," Nathan said with a slight smile. "The actual proposal will come later with a ring and probably better planning. This is me asking permission to eventually ask the real question." "You're ridiculous." Victoria laughed through her tears. "And yes, I want you as my partner, in everything." Nathan stood, pulling her up with him, and kissed her. It was gentle and fierce all at once, a promise and a celebration. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. "We should probably discuss professional boundaries," Nathan said, still holding her close. "Office relationships, conflicts of interest, all that legal stuff I'm supposed to care about as your attorney." "Tomorrow," Victoria murmured. "Tonight, can we just be two people who care about each other? Tonight we can be anything you want." They stayed in the office until nearly midnight, watching the story unfold across the world. Derek Stone's mugshot appeared on TMZ, disheveled, furious, humiliated. Stone Enterprises stock dropped 12% in after-hours trading. 3 board members resigned immediately. The West Shore collection deal was officially terminated. And somewhere in Manhattan, in a jail cell, Derek Stone was learning what consequences felt like. But Victoria wasn't thinking about Derek anymore. She was thinking about Monday, about the arraignment, about building the foundation for real change in her industry. She was thinking about the future, and for the first time in 7 months, it looked bright. Manhattan Criminal Court, 3 months later. Monday, June 17th, 9:15 a.m. The courthouse steps were packed with media, protesters, and curious onlookers. Victoria emerged from the black SUV, Nathan at her side, and was immediately hit by a wall of sound. Camera shutters clicking, reporters shouting questions, supporters chanting, "Ashford Standard! Ashford Standard!" She dressed carefully for today. A navy blue Armani suit that struck the balance between professional and approachable, pearl earrings that had belonged to her mother, minimal makeup that didn't hide the faded yellow remnant of her bruise. 3 months had passed since Derek Stone struck her, but she wanted the jury to see what remained. "Ms. Ashford, how confident are you about today's verdict?" "Victoria, do you have a statement? Is it true that 12 companies have adopted the Ashford Standard?" Nathan's hand was steady on her lower back, guiding her through the crowd. 2 security guards cleared a path to the courthouse entrance. Victoria paused at the doors and turned to face the cameras. "I'm confident that justice will be served today," she said clearly. "Not just for me, but for every victim of Derek Stone's abuse, and for every service worker who's ever been told to accept mistreatment as part of the job. Thank you." Inside, the courthouse was blessedly quiet. Victoria and Nathan made their way to courtroom 7, where the trial had been held over the past 3 weeks. The prosecution had been thorough, methodical, devastating. Security footage of the assault played repeatedly. Jessica Chen testified about her harassment and constructive dismissal. Maria Rodriguez described Derek's proposition and false theft accusation. Emily Stevens, the accountant, provided damning evidence of corporate fraud. Stone Enterprises funds used to silence victims. Derek's defense team had tried everything. They claimed Victoria had entrapped Derek, that she deliberately provoked him. They suggested her undercover work proved she was unstable, attention-seeking. They painted Derek as a demanding but fair businessman who'd simply lost his temper once under extreme stress. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the jury, 7 women, 5 men, diverse in age and background, had looked increasingly disgusted as the trial progressed. Today was verdict day. Victoria entered the courtroom and took her seat in the front row of the gallery. Nathan sat beside her, his hand finding hers beneath the wooden barrier. Across the aisle, Derek Stone sat with his lawyers, looking diminished. His expensive suit couldn't hide the weight he'd lost, the shadows under his eyes. His empire was crumbling. Stone Enterprises stock had tanked. Board members had resigned. Investors were fleeing. 3 major contracts had been canceled. Forbes had removed him from their most influential list. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. The bailiff stood. "All rise." The Honorable Judge Patricia Martinez presiding. Judge Martinez was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd made it clear from day one that she wouldn't tolerate theatrics. She took her seat and surveyed the packed courtroom. "Please be seated. We're here for the verdict in the matter of the People versus Derek Stone. Has the jury reached a verdict?" The jury foreperson, a middle-aged black woman who worked as a teacher, stood. "We have, Your Honor. On the charge of assault in the 3rd degree, how do you find?" "Guilty, Your Honor." Victoria's breath caught. Nathan squeezed her hand. "On the charge of aggravated harassment in the 2nd degree, how do you find?" "Guilty." Derek's face had gone pale. His lead attorney whispered urgently in his ear, but he didn't seem to hear. "On the charge of falsifying business records in the 1st degree, how do you find?" "Guilty." "On the charge of grand larceny in the 4th degree, how do you find?" "Guilty." Judge Martinez continued through all 11 charges. "Guilty, guilty, guilty." By the end, Derek was slumped in his chair, the reality finally sinking in. "Mr. Stone, please rise," Judge Martinez ordered. Derek stood shakily, his lawyers flanking him. "You have been found guilty on all counts. Sentencing will be scheduled for 4 weeks from today. Until then, bail is revoked. You are remanded into custody immediately." The courtroom erupted. Derek's mother, sitting behind him, let out a sob. His lawyers immediately began arguing for bail to continue, but Judge Martinez was unmoved. "Your client has substantial resources and has already demonstrated a pattern of using those resources to evade accountability. He'll remain in custody until sentencing." Bailiff. 2 court officers moved forward. Derek's face had gone from pale to red, his composure finally shattering. As the bailiff reached for his arm, Derek turned and looked directly at Victoria. "This is your fault," he hissed, loud enough for the front rows to hear. "You destroyed my life. You, Mr. Stone." Judge Martinez's voice cracked like a whip. "You will not address the victim. Officers, remove him now." As Derek was led away in handcuffs, Victoria felt a complex swirl of emotions. Relief, vindication, satisfaction. but also a strange sadness. Derek had destroyed himself. She'd simply held up a mirror and forced him to see it. Outside the courtroom, Victoria's legal team gathered for a quick debrief. Assistant District Attorney James Chen, no relation to Jessica, was beaming. That was as comprehensive a guilty verdict as I've ever seen. Your testimony was key, Ms. Ashford. The jury believed you completely. When sentencing? Nathan asked, all business despite the triumph in his eyes. 4 weeks. Given the convictions, I'm recommending 2 to 4 years plus significant fines and restitution. The judge seemed receptive. James paused. Ms. Ashford, you should know. We've received inquiries from the FBI. They're investigating Stone Enterprises for additional fraud charges related to tax evasion and securities violations. Your accountant friend Emily Stevens provided them with quite a roadmap. Victoria nodded. Will they need me to testify again? Possibly, but that's months away. For now, enjoy your victory. You earned it. James shook her hand warmly. What you did here, coming forward, refusing to be intimidated, it matters. I've had 6 other assault victims contact our office in the past 3 months saying they were inspired by your courage. That's 6 more dangerous people who will face consequences. After James left, Nathan pulled Victoria aside into a quiet alcove. How are you feeling? Honestly? Victoria leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted despite it being only 10 a.m. Like I can finally breathe. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. Nathan cupped her face gently, his thumb tracing her cheekbone where the bruise had been. You've been carrying this weight for 3 months, now it's over. Not completely over. There's still sentencing, and the civil suit, and Victoria. Nathan's voice was firm but gentle. Let yourself have this moment. Derek Stone was just convicted on all charges. Your policies are being adopted by companies nationwide. You've sparked a conversation about workplace dignity that's changing the industry. You won. Completely and totally. Victoria let his words sink in. He was right. She had won. Not just in court, but in every way that mattered. Her phone buzzed with a text from Margaret Chen. Watching the courthouse feed. Guilty on all counts. Board meeting tonight to celebrate? Champagne mandatory. Another from Simone at the Grand Meridian. We're all watching at the hotel. The entire staff is cheering. You're amazing. And one from Jessica Chen that made Victoria's eyes water. Thank you for going first. Thank you for being brave. Because of you, I got justice too. My settlement with Stone Enterprises was finalized today. I can finally move on. Nathan, look at this. Victoria showed him Jessica's message. Nathan read it and smiled. That's what you did, Victoria. You didn't just save yourself. You saved others. You gave them permission to speak up. They exited the courthouse together to face the media frenzy. This time, Victoria was ready with a statement. Today, Derek Stone was convicted on all charges related to his assault on me and his systematic abuse of power. This verdict isn't just about one man's actions. It's about accountability. It's about the principle that wealth and status don't place anyone above the law or basic human decency. Victoria paused, gathering her thoughts. 3 months ago, I was afraid to come forward. I knew the scrutiny would be intense, that people would question my motives and my character. But I also knew that if I stayed silent, Derek would continue hurting people. And I couldn't live with that. A reporter called out, "What message do you have for other victims of workplace abuse? That your voice matters, your dignity matters. You don't have to accept mistreatment as part of the job. And if you do come forward, there are people who will believe you, support you, and fight for you." Victoria's voice strengthened. The Ashford Standard isn't just a policy, it's a promise. No one should have to endure what I endured, what Jessica Chen endured, what Maria Rodriguez endured. We can build a better industry, a better workplace culture, and it starts with saying, no more. Another reporter, what's next for you and Ashford Holdings? Continued growth and continued advocacy. We're expanding the Ashford Standard to include mental health support for employees who experience workplace trauma. We're creating an industry coalition to share information about banned guests. If someone abuses staff at one hotel, they should face consequences at all hotels. And we're partnering with hospitality schools to train the next generation of managers in dignity-focused leadership. And personally? A voice called from the back. Are the rumors true about you and Nathan Cross? Victoria glanced at Nathan, who raised an eyebrow as if to say your call. She smiled. Nathan has been my attorney, my advisor, and my friend throughout this ordeal. As of last week, he's also my fiancé. The crowd erupted in surprise and congratulations. Nathan stepped forward, slipping his arm around Victoria's waist in a gesture that was both protective and proud. "Ms. Ashford proposed to me, actually," he said with a grin, "because she does everything on her own terms." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Victoria leaned into Nathan, feeling lighter than she had in months. "We have no further comments today. Thank you all." As they walked away, Victoria heard the reporters already crafting their headlines. Ashford wins total victory. Service industry revolution. From victim to victor. But Victoria's favorite moment came later that afternoon, back at Ashford Holdings headquarters. The entire company had gathered in the main atrium. Corporate employees, hotel staff brought in from various properties, even some former colleagues of her father's. Robert Walsh had organized a celebration, complete with champagne and a cake decorated with the Ashford Holdings logo. But before the celebration officially started, Simone from the Grand Meridian approached Victoria with a small box. "We all chipped in," Simone said, her eyes shining. "Every employee at the Grand Meridian. We wanted you to have this." Victoria opened the box to find a simple silver bracelet engraved with words. V. Torres. Part of the team. Always. "We know you're Victoria Ashford, owner and CEO," Simone continued. "But for 3 months, you were Vicky Torres, our co-worker. You stood beside us, you understood us, and when it mattered most, you stood up for all of us. So you're always part of our team. Always." Victoria's vision blurred with tears. She hugged Simone tightly, then looked around at the assembled crowd, people from every level of the company, all watching her with pride and affection. "I don't know what to say," Victoria admitted, her voice thick with emotion. "When I started this company after my father died, I was terrified. I was 26 years old, grieving, overwhelmed. I thought I had to be perfect, had to have all the answers. But working alongside you, really working, not just observing from an executive office, taught me something crucial. Leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about listening, learning, and standing up for what's right even when it's hard." She slipped the bracelet onto her wrist. "My father built this company with excellence and ambition. I want to build on that foundation with compassion and integrity, and I can't do that alone. So thank you. Thank you for accepting me as Vicky, for teaching me what you deal with every day, and for standing with me through everything that followed." Robert Walsh raised his champagne glass. "To Victoria Ashford, who proves that true leadership means being willing to walk in any pair of shoes, from the boardroom to the front desk." "To Victoria," the crowd echoed, glasses raised. As the celebration swirled around her, Victoria found a quiet moment with Nathan by the windows overlooking Manhattan. The city stretched out below them, teeming with life and possibility. "A year ago, I was a different person," Victoria said softly. "I was so focused on proving myself, on being worthy of my father's legacy. I never stopped to think about what kind of legacy I wanted to create." "And now?" Nathan asked, his arm around her waist. "Now I know. I want to build a company where people feel valued, where dignity isn't negotiable, where we measure success not just in revenue but in the lives we improve, employees and guests alike." Victoria turned to face him. "And I want to build a life with you, a real life, not just stolen moments between crises." Nathan smiled, that warm, genuine smile that made her heart skip. "I've been thinking about that. I have a proposal. Not a marriage proposal, we already covered that. A practical proposal. I'm listening. I resign as your attorney. Ashford Holdings hires a different law firm. Excellent lawyers, I have recommendations. That way there's no conflict of interest when we get married. I can be your partner, your advisor, your sounding board, but not as your lawyer, just as me." Victoria considered this. "You'd give up one of your biggest clients?" "I'd give up anything for a chance at a real relationship with you. No professional boundaries, no ethical complications. Just us, building something together." Nathan took her hands. "Besides, I've been thinking about doing something different with my career. Maybe corporate law isn't my calling. Maybe I should focus on advocacy, on cases like Jessica Chen's and Maria Rodriguez's. Use my skills to help people who need it." "You'd be brilliant at that," Victoria said sincerely. "And yes, let's do it. Let's keep our professional and personal lives separate. Well, mostly separate. I reserve the right to still ask your opinion on business matters. Always," Nathan promised. "So, about this wedding, when were you thinking?" "Not for a while. I want to enjoy being engaged. I want to focus on these new initiatives at the company. And honestly, I want us to just be together without the pressure of planning a massive event." Victoria paused. "But when we do get married, I want it to be meaningful. Small, intimate. People who actually matter to us, not a society spectacle. Sounds perfect to me. Nathan pulled her closer. You know what else sounds perfect? Dinner tonight. Just the two of us. No business talk, no reporters, no crisis management. Just dinner with the woman I love. That might be the best proposal I've heard all day, Victoria teased. As the sun set over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Victoria reflected on the journey that had brought her here. 3 months ago, she'd been struck by a man who thought she was nothing. Today, that man was convicted on all charges while she stood surrounded by people who loved and respected her. Her phone buzzed one more time. An email from the National Organization for Women, requesting Victoria speak at their annual conference about workplace dignity and assault prevention. Another from Harvard Business School inviting her to give the commencement address next spring. A third from a major publishing house, asking if she'd be interested in writing a book about her experience. Victoria smiled and put her phone away. Those decisions could wait. Tonight she just wanted to be Victoria. Not CEO, not victim, not activist. Just a woman who'd fought for justice and won, who'd found love in unexpected places and who'd learned that true strength came from vulnerability, not invincibility. Ready to go? Nathan asked, offering his arm. Ready, Victoria said, linking her arm through his. As they left the celebration and stepped into the elevator, Nathan pulled out a small velvet box. I know we said no big proposals, but I did want to do this part right. He opened the box to reveal a simple platinum band with a single diamond. Elegant, understated, perfect. Victoria Ashford, will you marry me? For real this time, with a proper ring and proper question. Victoria looked at the ring, then at Nathan's face. Earnest, loving, nervous, despite already knowing her answer. Yes. 1,000 times yes. As Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, Victoria realized this was the moment her new life truly began. Not in the courtroom, not at the press conference, but here, in a quiet elevator with the man she loved, choosing happiness and partnership and possibility. The elevator doors opened to the lobby. Outside, the Manhattan evening was alive with light and energy. Victoria stepped out, Nathan's hand in hers, ready for whatever came next. Because she'd learned something crucial over these past 3 months. She didn't need to have all the answers. She didn't need to be perfect. She just needed to be brave enough to stand up for what was right, vulnerable enough to accept help when she needed it, and wise enough to know that sometimes the greatest strength came from admitting you couldn't do everything alone. Derek Stone had tried to break her. Instead, he'd forged her into something stronger. And Victoria Ashford was just getting started. Epilogue. 6 months later, the Grand Meridian Hotel had never looked more beautiful. White roses and candlelight transformed the rooftop garden where Richard Ashford had once hosted legendary parties. But tonight wasn't about business or networking. Tonight was about love. Victoria stood in a simple silk gown, her hand in Nathan's, surrounded by 50 people who truly mattered. Her board members turned friends, her employees turned family, the women who'd found courage through her story. Jessica Chen served as a bridesmaid. Simone officiated. Margaret Chen cried happy tears. Robert Walsh gave a toast about Richard Ashford's daughter becoming the leader he'd always hoped she'd be. And as Victoria and Nathan exchanged vows under the Manhattan stars, she thought about how far she'd come. From a scared young woman working undercover to find an embezzler, to a survivor who'd stood up to her attacker, to a leader changing an entire industry, but most importantly, to a woman who'd learned that true power wasn't about control or perfection. It was about integrity, compassion, and the courage to demand better, from others and from herself. I love you, Nathan whispered, as they shared their first kiss as husband and wife. I love you too, Victoria whispered back. And somewhere in the celebration, unnoticed by most, a new young receptionist at the front desk handled an angry guest with grace and confidence. When the guest became verbally abusive, she calmly pressed a button under the desk, the new emergency system Victoria had installed. Within 90 seconds, a manager arrived and escorted the guest from the property, permanently banned as per the Ashford standard. The receptionist returned to her work, shoulders straight, dignity intact, and the revolution continued.